Hello, and thank you for joining me, Marilee, with Making Meals Matter for today's episode, the second in our series of Making Meals Matter with Millennials. And I am so excited. Chloe, my co-host, is here today as we explore a deeper connection with what's going on in millennials' lives right now, as well as how to get tips and tools in making life just more enjoyable. There's so much going on. It's such a dynamic time in our world. And I'd like to think we can get positivity out of what's going on. Possibly it feels chaotic. Possibly it feels dread. There's pessimism. There is a lot going on. And yet, change begins with us. If it's meant to be, it's up to me, is kind of that mentality of where we get to shift. Our first week, we started with mindset and how we're able to reconnect, to be seen and be heard and valued. It's so important, not just with millennials, but with all of us. Hi, good morning, Chloe.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us again today for our second part of our series. We're going to be diving into heart and emotion around all of this.
I'm doing well. I mean, as you said, there's a lot of things that have come up even over the last couple of weeks. And for me, even though it's unpredictable, I see it as unpredictable growth and change that I get to be a part of.
Yeah.
So I get to dive in. I get to be aware of my surroundings, aware of myself, educate myself, be open to listening and learning. I'm just choosing to be proactive about it all.
So how are you able to do that? How are you able to get your information and stay in kind of a shifted positive emotional space? It's pretty heavy right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, directly relating to what's been coming up around like with the Black community, it really made me realize what bubble I have been in my entire life. And it honestly started with getting the different perspectives of my friends, of people that I work with, and really being able to take a step back and not approaching something to respond or to react, but rather than approach something to be able to listen, to be able to be open. So I like these past couple of weeks, I tell people have changed my life for forever, because it really has allowed me to look at things through a different lens right now. And because I've had that awareness, I then choose to know better, to do better.
Okay, so what's this lens that you speak of?
I'd almost like compare it to seeing things black and white and now into color.
Mm-hmm.
And the color aspect of that to me resembles being passionate, being open, being understanding, being able to have difficult conversations, being able to stand up not only for myself, but for other people. Just stepping into my power and not allowing what's happening in the world to just happen, but allow for me to be a part of the conversation as well.
Right now, I have realized, and I'm significantly older than you, I'm 48. I have teen daughters, and what the situation going on has brought up for me is how still ignorant I am, and perhaps have turned a blind eye, not because I didn't want to see it. It's more that that isn't something I was seeking. So something comes up like the situation and Black Lives Matter and all lives matter. I realize how I get to educate myself. And I do that by actually having conversations. I want to be aware of the events that are going on in the world. I want the facts to be able to move forward and educate myself. It's so important to know facts. And right now, that's really difficult with media. And I want to be seen and heard too. I'm sure everybody out there that's feeling slighted, slandered. I looked something up and I wanted to share it with you. There are only two things that really can fulfill millennials. And so let me know, Chloe, if what I'm about to read resonates with you. Is that the first thing is to be completely understood, accepted, and respected by a loyal companion. Clearly, that could be populations, that could be other people with whom they respect themselves. And a lifelong seduction with somebody they can call their own. This level of understanding, this level of intimacy, is the only way that they can heal their wounds, usually of a very difficult upbringing, childhood, things that have not come easy at all. The second thing is having enough money to live a lifelong vacation and help people. I like that part. Help people along the way as very important aspect, as they are an emotional generation, probably kind of reactive, I would say. And they are actually compassionate. They are very compassionate, just as you had just mentioned. Compassionate about their fellow men, though they may not seem like it. Nothing dissatisfies them more than the need to fend for basic necessities. Like, who should really have to fend for it? But I get it. I get how that would be tricky and challenging and frustrating all at the same time, as it goes against their lifelong quest to find fulfillment and reduces their base human urges they consider beneath them, like fighting for resources and food. This is a struggle that this generation, who puts a premium on self-actualization, lives with day in and day out. What do you think?
Intense analysis.
Right? Like,
There's a lot to that. Yeah.
a lot of it. But they were also things that you even said that I just expounded on by what I found, is that you want to help people. But let's get into this reactionary bit. What we've just been watching on social media, how we are reactionary to what's going on. Well, then there are the people that are luckily taking time and saying, this is bigger than Black Lives Matter. Black lives do matter. We all matter. So how are we going to make this on a grander scale? Well, we've got to start with peaceful protests. Let's be seen. Let's be heard. Have you joined in any of those?
Yes, I have. I've been able to. I haven't been a part of like any big ones in San Diego where I live, but I've been like, when I take my walks along the coast, like I will see groups of people, all together with signs. And I remember driving by a couple weeks ago an intersection where all four were filled, and in one corner I saw a sign held up by he appeared to be a young Black man, holding up a sign that says, "Am I next?" And like that just tore me to shreds. I can't like even imagine like asking myself that question, and like I can't imagine holding that question up for other people to see and to ask themselves. Yeah, I mean, I think it is super important for us, like as humans, to stand up, to use our voice, to allow ourselves to be seen and heard. That's definitely a choice, and that's something that I've definitely struggled with before. I was terrified of quote success, because for me success allowed myself to be seen and heard, and that was something I was like, nope, not today, not for a while.
Yeah, it put you in the spotlight to be seen. It would put you out there and ultimately judged.
Yeah. even though that it's kind of a complicated thing, because like even though like I was terrified of that, I also craved that at the same time. And that was because because like I didn't see and understand myself, like, you know, in my own eyes. And so I was terrified of then other people seeing that, because I was fearful of being abandoned, being alone, like feeling rejected, all of those things that a lot of people don't want to feel.
So, how'd you move through that? Wanting to be seen and heard and getting scared when you're seen and heard.
Yeah, I mean, it was the realization that I deserve to be seen and heard,
Gotcha.
um, because it is part of my worth. It is part of who I am. Like who I am
Mhm.
gets to be seen and heard and appreciated and
Absolutely.
adored and loved and worth all of that stuff by myself and by other people. And so I realized how selfish it was to hide myself
Mhm.
from other people. And that was a huge realization for me, is how selfish it is. Even though that's what kept me safe and what kept me comfortable, like it was ultimately taking from other people and I was just giving to myself.
The other thing that comes up is the emotion around, as I shift towards food and eating and making meals matter, I tend to reach out towards people. So how do you handle when things are going sideways or a direction and it doesn't feel good? These emotions are coming up, this anxiousness and whatever. So how did you used to handle when things got out of control and intense? It happens to all of us and we handle it differently. So what are times like that? Maybe an example, and how you handled it then, and what you learned, and now how you deal with stuff, because our whole lifetime we will come up against situations where there's a lot of emotion, perhaps feeling out of control. We get anxious and then we want to figure out, what do we do? How do we handle stuff that is beyond the realm of what we can change, what we can hold on to and control?
Yeah. So initially, it started with me switching my perspective, choosing to see things as happening for me and not to me or against me.
Okay.
When I decided to have things happen to me or against me,
Mhm.
that then led to me, well, in high school, not eating at all, or in college, like completely overeating. And I would do that because I felt like the situation that happened, like to me, against me,
Mhm.
was out of my control. And so I wanted to get into control.
Yeah.
And so, even though I couldn't control the situation directly, like I felt like I had a control in it because I, you know, I chose to eat a lot. And so, even though I guess like me thinking that I had control, like me
Right.
indulging in overeating, like really was out completely out of control. And so, yeah, I would overeat, because I felt like that was something that would fill me up. I don't like fill up whatever felt empty in me, depending on like the situation that occurred. But um, I felt like there was something missing, and I felt like the eating would fill that void for whatever reason. And then I started shifting into translating eating to journaling, because journaling for me felt like, instead of only having the thoughts like being replayed in my head over and over again, like journaling allowed me to flush all my thoughts and feelings like out of my body into paper, to still experience whatever was going on, but for me in a healthy and productive way. um, and so it felt like I was like almost like speaking to myself while I was journaling.
So it's a safe way, journaling is a safe way to let the emotions run through you onto paper. And I highly recommend it to anybody who doesn't currently do it. If you don't want to write it, speak into your phone in the notes section. You know, you can send yourself voice text and just get it off your chest. Another tip would be connecting with other people, somebody you trust. At the end of the day, your authentic self, your vulnerable self, is connecting with somebody else that's going to be receiving gently, lovingly. I know it doesn't always seem logical to put yourself out there, but the freedom of whether you journal it or you prefer to talk it out, um, the isolation then has, if you choose that, has this role effect like a snowball getting bigger and bigger. And our brain is so incredibly intelligent. And I know millennials, their brains go million miles an hour. um, this is an era of overachievers, mass amounts of overachievers making a lot of things happen, and enough is never enough. You got to get off that rat wheel, you know, the gerbil wheel, and
Oh
to
yeah, I'm really good at it. And that also, just thinking about it, like I was a huge overthinker. And again, that was me like replaying whatever, situation, story that, occurred, and then me almost like reframing the story into making it more complicated for myself.
yeah.
But again, like I would overthink that, overanalyze that, and that affected even my sleep as well. Because years ago, it would take me like hours, no joke, hours to fall asleep, because like I just kept those wheels turning.
Mhm.
And even if I woke up in the middle of the night, like it would take me at least an hour to fall back asleep because my mind would just keep running.
I have a daughter, 13. Not only is her body clock shifted kind of later, her brain goes so fast, she has multiple things going all the time. Like she'll have a phone going and a laptop going, or she'll have putty in her hand and she'll be watching something, or like there's multiple things going on simultaneously. Her brain works so fast and furiously. Um, there is this need for stimulation all the time.
Mm.
And her brain has trouble slowing down, calming to be able to go to bed. It's an interesting phenomenon because I think I could fall asleep standing up if my body was.
Sounds like a talent to me.
Oh my God, I can fall asleep anywhere. And it periodically, prior to COVID traveling, I could fall asleep on an airplane. Like I sit down in the chair, I'm like, I feel sorry for anybody that sits on either side of me, but yeah. So the connecting part about food, the emotions around food. We can also find ways in which to feel great around food.
Mm-hmm.
Is nourishment versus a controlling mechanism, and how that shifts. Like, I don't know about your household, what are traditions around cooking?
Um, traditions. I don't know if we've ever kept like any consistent traditions around cooking, but my brother recently has been very experimental in the kitchen. And it's been amazing to see and amazing to eat as well, because he just allows himself to have like this freedom and this creativity, and he is super conscious about health and what he puts into his body. And he's been like cooking up a storm. And what I applaud him for is being really good about having a variety of meals. And as for me, like my habits in the past have been to have the same thing for breakfast, have the same thing for lunch, have the same thing for dinner.
Same.
And like, my mom is in nutrition, and she brings it up to me like Chloe, like you get to have variety in your meals and what you give your body, because that actually, isn't the best for it.
Right.
And so my brother, he's like my personal chef, but then I also ask him to like, can I be your sous chef to help you? Because like that's something that like I really want to be better at, is cooking and be able to provide myself for what my body needs. And I'm eventually going to be moving from San Diego to the cold state of Michigan, and so
Oh, wow.
I I can't rely on my brother's cooking for forever. So I get to learn the best meals to make for myself.
Well, and with Making Meals Matter, I talk about a lot of things. One of them is color, a
Yeah.
variety of color in every meal. It means that you get more nutritive value, a variety that is in the food. And perfect world, we are getting our nutrition from food versus supplements. And I know it's not always easy with modifications that happen with foods and whatnot. We get to be diligent and learn. I'm glad you're taking this time to connect
Mhm.
with your brother, which is awesome. My brother was 3.5 years older, and by the time we could connect, we kind of he was off to military, U.S. Naval Academy, and I was just starting sophomore year of school, and we still were like, we weren't quite ready for connecting in the kitchen. So I love the fact that you are doing that and learning, especially as you take those skills and you can grow them as you move forward. Nourishing your body is not just the food you put in your mouth, Chloe. I know you know this. It's the music you listen to, the people you hang out with, the media that you watch or don't watch. How are you getting right now filled up with positivity? Are you listening to podcasts? Are you watching somebody inspirational? What do you do?
Yeah. So, I mean, my biggest thing is like I love listening to music and I love singing along. I love just dancing whether there's music on or not. And sorry, my dog is whining in the background. With music and dance, like I tell people that dance is my first language, and so I always resort to dance and music to fill my cup up to even overflow it. And also, what I've been choosing to do that I haven't been doing consistently recently is reading. Like I'm super passionate about reading. I have a whole library full of like the self-help books, and I'm rereading a book right now called The Four Agreements, and it's one of my favorites. I love the simplicity of it, and it's, at least for me, it's one of those books where I read it, I'm like, one, that it just makes sense,
Mhm.
and then two, because I read it several times, I catch myself learning, observing things that I didn't, the previous times that I read it.
Right. So awesome. Well, and you know, music's also a great thing to integrate into mealtime. You
Oh
can
yeah.
amplify joyfulness, you can mellow out. Obviously, music can make you heightened anger and anxiousness, like some of the beats and sounds. Some are just melodic, depending upon what mood you want to set. It's a great way to do it. But with
Mhm.
Making Meals Matter, one of the reasons why I even started it, because this is a way to connect with other people in your family as well. And in a world where we're so like, yeah, no, 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 or typing on our laptops, put the phone down, electronics down, pick your forks up, get in that kitchen, get messy, have fun. It's the creative process of letting go in a world
Mhm.
that's so fast paced. And I'm sure we get in routines, just kind of like you said, well, I'm fine with the same thing for breakfast or the same thing for lunch. If you're making healthy choices, at some point, this isn't about perfection. This is about practicing as you get into the kitchen. It is about filling yourself up and nourishing mind, heart, body, and soul, creating a synergy there, a synergy amongst what's your work life and a synergy of what your emotional, life is doing. How do you
Mhm.
do that for yourself? How do you create this synergy in your life?
Um,
Or are you still a work in progress? It's okay. Like,
oh,
you don't have it down.
I I'm always gonna work in progress, Marilee. Like it's just one of those things.
Like me.
And it's also like, the more I know, the more I don't know as well. And so the first thing that comes up for me is to be present with myself, be present with the moment that I'm given, be present with the people that I'm choosing to surround myself with, and to be grateful of where I'm at currently, who I have in my life. That's been a huge thing for me, is being present, being gratitude. That's kind of where I start.
Love that. Well, and we should. I
Mhm.
also know from leadership your personality and generosity and the care and concern. The transition I saw in you is amazing, where soft spoken Chloe, who might not have stood up and spoke what was coming from her heart and was stuck in her head telling herself, no, now's not a good time. I'm not going to say anything. Is the same mind that shut off long enough that the heart could come out of the words in which you spoke, and the inspiration and the power, self-empowered by, for sure, by your own volition. You created it in yourself. You decided, move through fear and speak on behalf of what was going on in your heart. Speak for others. It is how this shift of, although we feel fear, we're going to move through it and take the fear with us and go for it anyway. Right? So,
Yep, we get to fail forward. And
yeah. And if you do fail, what's the definition of that? It's basically like a potential, I would say, plot twist is what's happening for us, is the shifting in energy. So, Chloe, thank you so much for joining today, co-hosting our Making Meals Matter and Millennials, shifting from fast food to food made fast. It's the best bet, really. And so, just we were just talking about you and getting in the kitchen. It's what I hope everybody's doing. Everybody's taking care of themselves and taking time to actually slow down, put your phone down, pick your fork up, and take time to make decisions about how you want to move forward. Great tips. Chloe, if you want to mention a couple things that were highlighted for you on this series.
willing to allow yourself to have different perspectives, to see beyond what you already know, see beyond what you've been learning, been taught in the past, and to reform, redirect your habits. Maybe if it's something that you choose, like for me again, like I chose to eat or not eat in reaction to something. And so I then redirected eating to journaling and to having conversations with people that I love and I trust. And so again, allow yourself to still experience whatever you're feeling, whatever you're going through, and also be able to release those and be grateful for those as well. That's something huge.
For sure. Love it. Thanks for another great session. I appreciate you talking the blend now of the mindset portion with our emotions and heart as we're moving through some tricky times right now. Next week, we will be discussing the soul. So we'll be going through that and connecting again with Chloe. Catch us next week, Monday, 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for Making Meals Matter and Millennials.